Thank you all. It's great to be the last speaker. Hi, so while the slides come on, oh, there they are. So we've now heard from a bunch of folks talking about solutions that they're building across the healthcare ecosystem, across prevention, across data. Swasth is not a startup, we are a nonprofit foundation. What we focus on is really, how do you really bring all of these disparate players together? We have an incredibly fragmented healthcare ecosystem, and I'll talk a little bit about that. What we focus on now is really looking at the financial flows in health, which we think are incredibly important to actually achieving universal health coverage. So I'll talk a little bit about Swasth. Swasth is an independent nonprofit alliance of over 150 organizations that came together during COVID with the goal of actually supporting India's COVID effort, which we did during the first two waves. And then beyond, have a focus on actually building digital health technologies with the goal of driving inclusion and outcomes. I'll talk, and this again has been spoken about by other speakers here, but I'll briefly touch upon this. Mallory spoke about the epidemiological shift that we are seeing and this massive change in what Indians are falling sick and dying from. And what this change is fundamentally is that it really requires a very different model of care that is integrated across primary, preventive, curative, and rehabilitative care. We also have other problems in the ecosystem. We have an incredibly fragmented ecosystem. There's a very high proportion of out-of-pocket spending. About 60% of the care in India is actually delivered by the private ecosystem. The public and the private ecosystem don't really interact or talk. There are broken care journeys across the country. So a patient might go to a bunch of private providers and end up at a public hospital and really have no continuity there. And ABDM, which is part of what we're working on, is hoping to fix that. Very specifically, the two problems that we're working on is really working on the financing for universal health coverage and how do you really build digital highways that allow for financing. And we're working on really defragmenting and integrating this incredibly fragmented ecosystem. Our flagship project right now is called the HCX, which is the Health Claims Exchange. It's an integral part of the Ayushman Bharat Digital Health Mission. What the HCX is it's another open digital ecosystem. It's a bunch of standards that are, and I'll talk a little more about how these standards are created, but the idea with these standards is to actually standardize information exchange between the payer and provider, which is the key interaction in the healthcare ecosystem. And so what you see on that image is the providers on one side, the payers on the other side, and a switch in the middle that takes information from the right payer, right provider, sends it to the right payer, and also sends information to the regulator, which you see on top, the arrows, dotted lines going on top, which is either the National Health Authority, which is the public insurance scheme, or the Insurance Information Bureau of India, which is run by the insurance regulator to hold data for the private insurance sector. We see this work as the beginning of an incredibly impactful digital health ecosystem, which connects absolutely every node in the flow of money in healthcare, be it multiple kinds of payers that you will see emerging in the country, or be it the multiple kinds of providers or the multiple intermediaries, the research institutions, academics, or the regulators, which we think, again, is very, very important for achieving universal health coverage in India. The XCX originated from a joint working group that was set up between the National Health Authority and the insurance regulator in India in 2019, which recommended a bunch of design principles for a health claims platform, which included open APIs and standards, interoperability, and also advocated for strong data privacy and encryption. We were able to actually take this and expand this into what we called the HCX, or the Health Claims Exchange, moving away from a health claims platform. And the HCX is built like Beacon is and built like other emerging open digital ecosystems in India are, where you see the specifications right in the center, the green circle, which is the specifications and the standards, which is actually, like Beacon, built by an open community, and I'll talk a little more about the community later. We then have HCX networks. There are two networks being built right now, one by the National Health Authority and one by Swasth, for the public and the private ecosystems. And then we have the public and private ecosystems actually integrating on top of that. Example here, if you have to draw parallel with UPI, the HCX specifications is the UPI protocol, the network is what NPCI runs, and the integrators right on top are the Google Pays and the Paytms and everybody else. This has been an incredibly collaborative approach. We work with about 60-70% of India's insurance ecosystem payers across the country. This has been the work of 90+ volunteers who work for over 30 months. And I'll talk more about how this is structured. There's lots of folks in the room who actually have contributed, so thank you for everybody. I will just go on to the next slide. The way we do this is we have multiple working groups that meet every 2 weeks, working on technology and domain, as well as the policy working group that works on how these networks will actually operate and the policies that these networks will actually run. We also work very closely with the insurance regulator to adopt these standards, and these standards have now been adopted by the National Health Authority and also have been adopted by the insurance regulator. But we are also working with them on additional policy changes that can ride on top of these standards because India does need a significant amount of healthcare reform, both in how insurance policies are designed, what they cover, as well as how payments are made and how providers are paid. And all of that is a work in progress right now, and we believe that the HCX network will actually enable a lot of this. We haven't tried to reinvent the wheel here. Satyam spoke before me. He also, in addition to his role at Karkinos, he also works with the FHR India community, and we work closely with them. The idea here, again, is to not reinvent the wheel and use what's available. It's been a 3-year journey. Work started in 2020 with the formation of these working groups. It was interrupted by COVID. We continued to work on this through 2022 and 2023. We were also able to work with the National Health Authority and make sure that these standards actually fit Ayushman Bharat, PMJY, as well as CGHS, which is the central government health scheme. And I'm very happy to report that we are actually live with the HCX implementation, with multiple insurers actually integrated and live claims flowing through as of a few weeks ago in a proof of concept environment. And we intend to continue building this till we actually connect absolutely every point of care in India to every pool of money that pays for care. And that's really the goal of the HCX. And we see this as being a fundamental highway for allowing a universal health coverage in India. So here's where we are on this. We have the specifications ready. Like I said, we have the this is all open source. So the software that Swasth builds is open source. We have an open source implementation ready. We also have both staging and proof of concept environments. In addition, we are working with the teams from multiple providers as well as insurers. So we're also helping them with SDKs to actually connect. There are reference applications built. And so the goal is to continue working with the ecosystem across public and private to actually create this integration and create this highway for healthcare payments. So I'll stop here. Thanks a lot, and hope you had a great day.
Thank you so much. I mean,